Barakah is usually treated as a reactor success story, but that misses the part that a new nuclear builder actually needs to study. In 2008, the UAE had no operating nuclear power plants. By September of 2024, the fourth Barakah unit had entered commercial operation. So in this video, I'll show you the 5 owner-side problems that Barakah solved that every new or expanding nuclear program should deal with before the vendor, the schedule, and the politics start making the decisions for them. I worked on the UAE nuclear program earlier in my career, so I take this case personally. But the useful lessons here are in the visible public record: IEA interviews, national reports, licensing milestones, and the way the program was built around the plant. That is what makes Barakah so useful. No country gets to copy another country's nuclear program line by line. Your regulator, grid, financing, politics, industrial base, and owner organization will all be different. But Barakah gives new nuclear countries something rare: a modern example of a country that started without any nuclear power plants, brought in outside expertise, built the institutions around the project, and then moved the program into operation. So the question for a serious nuclear builder is simple: what did Barakah solve before those problems became expensive? The first problem starts before the reactor contract. This is where a lot of new nuclear programs get pulled towards the more visible decision: which reactor should we buy? That decision matters. Technology fit, reference plans, licensing experience, fuel supply, constructability, and operating support all do matter. In the UAE's case, selecting a proven pressurized water reactor design reduced a lot of technology risk. The country was joining an existing reactor family rather than trying to make its first nuclear program depend on an unproven design. But a reactor choice only works inside a program that knows how it wants to behave. If a country starts with the vendor decision, the rest of the program can end up being arranged around that vendor's assumptions. The regulator is rushed while the owner organization is still forming, and waste policy looks like it can wait, and public communication glosses over outside concerns. International commitments feel like ticking boxes rather than serving as the foundation of the program. That's where Barakah's public timeline is useful. In April 2008, the UAE adopted its nuclear policy. That policy committed the country to operational transparency, non-proliferation, strong safety and security standards, direct work with the IAEA, responsible international partners, and long-term sustainability. Then, in 2009, the UAE created the nuclear law, established the independent regulator, and established the owner organization. Only after that did the program announce that the Korean-led team would design, build, and support the 4 units. That order matters. The UAE answered the bigger program question before the vendor became the center of attention. What kind of nuclear country are we trying to become? That one question forces a whole bunch of other conversations early. Who owns the nuclear safety responsibility? How independent does the regulator need to be? How will the country handle safeguards, security, emergency planning, spent fuel, radioactive waste, and decommissioning? Those issues feel slow when a government wants a big announcement, but they define the rules that every partner will have to work inside of later. And they give the reviewers, regulators, vendors, and the owner a common structure to work inside of. So the first lesson is simple. Before you ask which reactor to buy, decide what kind of nuclear owner you are building. That means setting the national position, the legal framework, the regulator, the owner role, and the long-term responsibilities early enough that the vendor competition fits inside of the program. Because the vendor can help build the plant, but the country still has to build the program. The second problem is vendor support. New nuclear programs need outside expertise. There is no shame in that. I would be much more worried about a newcomer that tried to do everything on its own with people who had never delivered a nuclear project before. The vendor knows the reactor design, the vendor has the procedures, engineering history, construction experience, supply chain relationships, and design basis knowledge. That support is valuable, but the danger is quiet dependence. It can happen when the vendor becomes the only organization that knows why the plant is the way it is, while the owner becomes a vassal receiving documents, attending meetings, and hoping that the knowledge transfers somehow along the way. That might feel manageable during construction, but it becomes a real problem when the plant is operating and the licensee has to understand its own safety case, answer regulator questions, make procurement decisions, approve modifications, and plan for decades of operation. Barakah's public record shows a more deliberate model. The 2011 IEA INR report described the Korean-led contract as covering engineering, procurement, construction, nuclear fuel, and operations and maintenance support. That same report also pointed to extensive training, human resource development, and education programs as the UAE built capacity to staff the program with its own national talent. A few years later, the 2018 follow-up report identified good practice around the operating organization's engineering team. That team was expected to evolve into the design authority for the plant, supported by design transfer and participation with the Korean interface process. That is a very practical form of capability transfer. Because design authority is a meaningful title, it affects the routine decisions that keep a plant safe and reliable. A procedure change may depend on the safety analysis basis, or a design modification can affect maintenance, training, procurement, or licensing. Or a regulator may ask why a conclusion in the safety case is valid after the change. If the owner cannot understand the plant, then the owner cannot fully own the plant. Simply viewing training slides will never be enough for that. The owner's people need to work on real plant issues early enough to see how decisions are made. That's why transfer of care, custody, and control matters so much. During the construction and pre-operational testing, the vendor may hold major responsibilities, but the licensee needs to move towards taking control before fuel load, then full responsibility as the project crosses into operation. The lesson for new nuclear programs is to negotiate the capability path with the same seriousness as the price, schedule, and scope. The contract defines what the vendor delivers, but it should also define what the owner should be able to do by the end of the journey. That means usable access to design information, task-based training, embedded technical staff, participation in real reviews, and internal capability objectives for procedures, procurement, configuration management, maintenance, post-startup support, and so much more. A new owner should be asking one question very early. What should we be able to do ourselves 5 years after the first fuel load? That question changes the contract. It also changes staffing and training and how the owner behaves during construction. And it protects the organization from becoming permanently dependent on the people who helped get it started in the first place. The third problem is readiness, but not in the wishy-washy, vague way that most people talk about it. Here's what I mean. Construction progress is easy to see. Big holes get dug into the ground and major components arrive, and things eventually move towards commissioning. The plant begins to look less like a construction project and more like an actual operating facility. That visual progress can create a dangerous sense that the hard part is almost over. For a new or expanding nuclear owner, that is exactly when operational readiness needs the most attention. Barakah's 2018 IEA report is useful because it captured the program at exactly that transitional stage. It recognized that the UAE was close to completing the infrastructure needed to start operation of its first nuclear plant. It pointed to competent organizations, a legal and regulatory framework, and plans for operational readiness. But then it pointed out all the work that still needed to be done before fuel load. And oh boy, the operating procedures had yet to be finalized, key personnel had to complete training and certification in order to be qualified operators, long-term maintenance arrangements still weren't in place. And senior management needed to stay focused on operational readiness while still managing construction oversight for the remaining 3 units. Those findings did not mean that the project had failed. Rather, they showed how much still has to be done before a constructed plant transitions into an operating one. That matters for any country trying to launch nuclear or any utility trying to rebuild nuclear capability after a long pause. A nearly finished plant can still have enormous amounts of readiness work to do inside the organization. This is where the UAE developed something unique called the Operational Readiness Report. I won't go into all of the details here, but the Operational Readiness Report took the findings from the IEA inspection and split them into 3 groups. First, safe design. Does the licensing and safety basis support operation? Second, constructed per design. Has the plant been built, commissioned, and tested in accordance with the approved design, with configuration management protecting the design basis? Third, organizational readiness. Does the operator actually have the qualified people, processes, procedures, programs, and tools needed to operate safely? The regulator required all of these issues be closed before it would issue the operating license. That is a mature way to handle readiness because this approach pushes readiness down into the actual organization and forces ownership at the director, manager, and individual levels. Define readiness early enough so that every group knows exactly what evidence it has to produce. Build an operational readiness matrix and assign owners, track closures, and run self-assessments. Then invite external reviewers and make leadership see the gaps. That is especially important if construction is looking good because the last thing you want is for construction to be done, but the operating organization to not be ready to take over. That's what I mean when I say new programs need to define readiness early. A serious owner should be able to say very clearly what must be true before fuel load, who owns each requirement, what evidence will prove it, and what still has to close. That is the difference between hoping an organization is ready and proving it. The fourth problem is one that leaders sometimes avoid because it can be uncomfortable. External reviewers find things. When a nuclear program invites a serious review, the team will look at the leadership, training, operations, maintenance, technical support, emergency preparedness, commissioning, and all of the other practical parts that have to work when the plant starts operating. A weak program treats that as a reputational risk, but a strong program sees it as an opportunity. In 2017, with Unit 1 nearing completion, the UAE invited the IEA to conduct a pre-operational safety review at Barakah. The team included experts from around the world with over 400 years of combined nuclear power experience. They observed work, reviewed processes, interviewed staff, and looked at the plant as it approached operation. They found strengths, but they also identified areas that needed attention. One of the most useful examples was configuration control over design changes made during construction and commissioning. Now, that may sound like a technical administrative issue until you think about what it means for a real plant. Contrary to what many people believe, during construction, a lot of changes from the design happen. Equipment locations change or field conditions differ from the drawings. A component or support may need to be installed differently than planned because of space restrictions or cables need to be rerouted. Some changes are minor, but others can affect operating procedures, maintenance, training, or even the safety basis. If those changes are not controlled properly, the operating organization can inherit a plant where the design records, the physical plant, and what the regulator was told are all drifting apart. That is exactly the kind of issue you address before operation, while the organization can still fix the process and update the affected documents and procedures. But the point is, having this outside inspection team meant the UAE was willing to publicly put itself out there so that it could build a better plant owner and operator by learning from people who have done it before and know what the best looks like from around the world. And they were serious about getting it right. The UAE then invited a follow-up, and 5 years later, the IEA conducted another review. And the operator had fully addressed all of the findings from the 2017 pre-operational review. That is the approach new programs should copy. Invite the review, take the findings seriously, close them, and then invite the reviewers back to do it again. There is a cultural point here too that I need to bring up because it's so different from most other industries. In nuclear, a good external review is not an embarrassment. It is one of the ways a serious nuclear program shows it is willing to learn before weaknesses become an operating problem. So a new or expanding owner should use IEA missions, WANA reviews, IMPO peer visits, regulator inspections, and independent assessments as tools. Ask reviewers what would stop them if the next decision was theirs. Then make leadership own the answer. That feedback can be uncomfortable, but experienced folks in the industry know it protects the project. The fifth problem is the one that outlasts the whole project team. Nuclear programs get enormous attention when they are announced, when the contract is signed, when the first concrete is poured, and when the first unit comes online. Then the plant has to operate for decades. Nuclear plants are enormous assets that are realistically going to operate for a century. Multiple plants in the US have already been approved to operate for 80 years, with no real end in sight. And those decades are where the owner's early decisions will keep showing up over and over. The 2018 IEA report made this very clear. The UAE recognized that its nuclear power program was a long-term commitment, lasting at least 100 years. That is the kind of mindset that new and expanding programs need. Because once a plant is running, the country still needs a pipeline of qualified people. Operators and engineers are going to move or retire. The regulator has to maintain competence. And the owner has to keep its design authority, procurement capability, maintenance, emergency planning, safety culture, and countless of other programs alive. But there are especially long-term items that get neglected. Spent fuel and radioactive waste will begin to be generated as soon as the plant comes online. Decommissioning plans and funding also have to be created long before anybody is ready to decommission anything. These issues are easy to postpone because they feel distant when the first reactor is not even started yet. The UAE's public reviews show why long-term sustainability has to be part of the program from the beginning. The 2018 IEA report recommended more proactive national coordination for long-term strategies, approval and implementation arrangements for spent fuel and radioactive waste, and development of a national research and development program to support continuing the nuclear program. Again, these aren't bad findings or things to be embarrassed about, but it does show even a successful program still has long-term work to close. So, new nuclear owners should treat sustainability as part of the overall program infrastructure. Building up national talent and supply capabilities ensure that after the plant is done and the vendor leaves, the reactors can keep running reliably for generations. It's less exciting than reactor selection and construction, but look at it like this. The first 10 years of a nuclear project are construction. The next 100 are operating the thing. So clearly, the second part needs some attention or the whole thing won't work. So when people look at Barakah, the easy story is to say that the UAE bought a proven reactor and delivered a successful project. That story is true, but it is too thin to be useful for a serious nuclear builder, and dangerous if that's all that they think they need to copy. The useful thing is that Barakah solved the big owner-side problems that many programs underestimate. And that's the part that's really worth copying. Now, owning a nuclear program, especially if you're new or expanding one after a long break, is an amazing project to have. But the thing is, you're going to need a reliable source of fuel once you start operating. So to learn where the real choke points sit, watch this video here to take charge of the fuel supply chain, so uranium interruptions don't leave your expensive new reactor sitting empty.